I knew something was wrong the moment I stepped back into the house. It was too quiet. Not everyone's asleep quiet, unnatural quiet. The kind where the walls almost seem to breathe, like they're holding in a secret. I hadn't planned to come back. I dropped off Ethan at kindergarten, same as always. He was chattering about dinosaurs the whole way there, asking if I thought T-Rex could beat a robot. I laughed, kissed his forehead, and watched him run through the school gate. Then halfway to work, I realized I forgot my wallet. I cursed under my breath, turned around, texted my boss I'd be late. I wish I hadn't come back. As I pulled into the driveway, I noticed the front door wasn't shut all the way, just slightly ajar. Not much, barely noticeable, but we always closed it. Julia was obsessive about it. She'd lock the door even if I just went outside to take the trash out. My gut tightened. I remember thinking, maybe she wanted to take the dog out. Except, we didn't have a dog. I stepped inside slowly. The air felt heavy, still, like the calm before a storm. I set my keys on the hallway table and called out her name, quietly at first. No answer. Something inside me knew. I heard a creak, not from my steps, from down the hall. Bedroom. Then laughter. I froze. Laughter. Low. Soft. A man's voice. Then hers. Her laugh. That little giggle she used to do when we first met, when she was trying to flirt but pretend she wasn't. My blood ran cold. I moved without thinking. Down the hallway. Past the photos we took at the lake. Past the drawings Ethan made taped to the wall. Toward the door that was mostly shut, but not completely. I pushed it open, and there she was. My wife, Julia. In our bed. With someone else. It took my brain a few seconds to catch up to my eyes. Like I was watching it happen in someone else's life. Like I was outside my own body. She turned. Her expression shifted instantly from surprise to panic to something else. Something I still can't name. Like I was the one intruding. He was scrambling to pull his pants up. I didn't recognize him. Young, maybe late 20s. No ring on his finger. She didn't say sorry. Didn't say my name. Didn't even flinch. She just said, "You're not supposed to be home." And I think that hurt worse than anything else. I didn't say a word. I just stood there. I couldn't move. Couldn't even blink. The air in the room felt thick, like I was underwater. I could hear my heart pounding in my ears, louder than anything they were saying. She clutched the sheet to her chest, as if I hadn't already seen everything. The guy was fumbling to find his shoes, mumbling something like, "I thought you said your husband wouldn't be back this early." I barely looked at him. All my focus was on her. My wife. The woman I met 8 years ago at a friend's party. The woman who cried when she found out she was pregnant. The woman who held my hand in the delivery room like it was her lifeline. She looked like a stranger. Her hair was a mess, her cheeks flushed. And still, her first instinct wasn't guilt. It wasn't fear. It was annoyance. "Can you just give us a second?" she said to the guy, waving him toward the hallway. "Are you kidding me right now?" I said. My voice was low, flat, like it wasn't mine. "I'll talk to you later," she added, ignoring me completely. He grabbed his hoodie and left the room without looking back. And then it was just us. She pulled the sheet tighter, sat up on the bed like she had the right to look comfortable. I was still standing by the door, frozen. "I can explain," she said. That sentence, it set me off. "Explain what, Julia?" I snapped. "You're in our bed. 10 minutes ago. I dropped off our son at school while you were here, doing this." She winced. "Don't say it like that." "How should I say it?" She looked away. "You don't understand. It meant nothing. Nothing." She said it so casually, like she was trying to minimize spilling red wine on the carpet. "It meant nothing." "That's worse," I said quietly. "You threw everything away? For nothing?" "I didn't plan it. It just happened." I laughed. I actually laughed. The short, bitter sound that didn't even sound human. "You didn't plan it, but you managed to invite him into our home, into our bed, while our son was gone. That's not something that just happens, Julia." She didn't cry. She didn't beg. She didn't fall to the floor or chase me or even try to touch me. She just looked tired, like I was the one being unreasonable. "I've been feeling alone for a long time," she finally said. "You've been so focused on work, on Ethan, on everything else. I needed to feel like someone saw me." I felt something twist in my stomach, like maybe this was my fault. But then I remembered who picked up Ethan every day, who got up at 3 a.m. when he had nightmares, who picked up extra shifts so she could stay home and rest, who never once said no when she asked for anything. I saw her differently in that moment, not as someone who made a mistake, not as someone who slipped up, as someone who chose this, carefully, secretly, repeatedly, and all I could think was, what else don't I know? That thought would haunt me in the days to come. I didn't sleep that night, or the next. I kept seeing it. The scene in our bedroom replayed on a loop, her face when she saw me, his voice, the way she pulled the sheets around her like I was the intruder. Every time I closed my eyes, it hit me like a brick wall. And not just the image, the truth of it. She had planned this. She'd timed it. She knew I'd be out dropping Ethan off. That meant this wasn't spontaneous. This wasn't a moment of weakness or a heat of the moment thing. This was scheduled, thought out, coordinated. That made it worse. I didn't know what to do, so I did nothing. I didn't confront her again, didn't yell, didn't scream. I just walked through the next day like a ghost. She tried to talk. I wouldn't respond. She texted me long paragraphs while I sat on the couch across the room, phone lighting up in my lap. I didn't read them. Then came the excuses. I wasn't thinking. I felt invisible for a long time. It only happened once. That last one caught my attention. So I asked, finally, only once. She paused. Too long. And there it was. It hadn't been once. It had been going on for almost 4 months. 4 months. While I worked overtime. While I took Ethan to swim class. While I cleaned the gutters she said made the house look neglected. While she kissed me goodbye and told me to have a good day. And that guy? His name was Sean. He worked at her gym. He was married. Of course he was. They'd been meeting at our house every few weeks, whenever she could be sure I was gone. I remember I asked her, why here? Why our house? And she just looked at me and said, I don't know. I guess I felt safe here. That made me physically sick. I walked out. Didn't say another word. I drove around for hours. I ended up parked outside the school, watching Ethan's classroom window through the chain-link fence, just to remind myself why I couldn't fall apart completely. That night, I slept in the guest room. The next morning, she tried to act normal, made coffee, asked if I wanted eggs. I said nothing, and for the first time, I saw panic in her eyes. Not guilt, panic, because she knew I was starting to detach. When I didn't come to bed that night either, she came to the door. You're not even going to try? She asked. That's what she said. Like I hadn't been trying for years. Like I hadn't done everything but beg for her to meet me halfway in our marriage. You killed something, Julia, I said. And now you're shocked it's not breathing. I'll never forget her face when I said that. But even then, I didn't know how bad it really was. Not yet. That part came next. About a week after I caught them, she started getting bolder. Maybe she thought if she acted normal long enough, I'd forget. Or maybe she thought I'd just swallow it, like so many other things I'd swallowed over the years to keep the peace. I didn't. I started watching. Not in a paranoid way, at least not at first. But when someone betrays you that deeply, your brain starts noticing everything. The way she'd jump at notifications. The way she always kept her phone face down now. How she'd take longer showers, and the phone would vanish with her, even if she was just stepping outside for 2 minutes. I wasn't stupid. I just didn't have proof. Until I found the other phone. It was pure chance. I was grabbing the laundry basket from the floor of our bedroom, hers, from her side of the bed. I reached under the dresser to pull out a shirt that had fallen behind and heard a thud. Something plastic, something heavy. I reached under and pulled out a second phone. No case. A cracked corner. And the battery was nearly dead, but it still turned on. No lock. I don't know what shook me more, that it existed, or that it was so full of everything she'd hidden from me, like she hadn't even tried to hide it that well because she didn't believe I'd ever look. There were messages with Sean, sure, but there were others. Multiple guys. One named Ian. One named Matt. Some of the messages were recent. Some went back months. I couldn't even keep track of who was who because most of the chats were just usernames or nicknames. B-Ball Dad or Phoenix Trip. The conversations were explicit, sure, but also personal. She was emotionally involved. It wasn't just cheating. It was a pattern. And then I saw something that snapped the last thread of restraint inside me. A photo of Ethan. She had sent a photo of our son, Deshaun, captioned, "He's finally down for his nap." I have about 45 minutes, winky face. Like he was a prop, a schedule marker, a joke. I felt something in me go cold. I didn't scream. I didn't throw the phone. I just sat there, in the middle of the bedroom, staring at the screen while she was downstairs folding towels like it was a normal Saturday. When I went down, I handed her the phone. She didn't deny it. She didn't even try to lie. Her face just dropped. "You weren't supposed to find that," she whispered. That sentence. Not "I'm sorry." Not "it's not what you think." Just, "You weren't supposed to find that." That's when I knew. She didn't feel bad about what she did. She felt bad that I saw it. I left the house that night, took Ethan, and went to my brother's place. Didn't say goodbye. Didn't explain. I just packed a bag, buckled my son into the car seat, and drove off while she watched from the porch, frozen. And the very next morning, I called a lawyer. The lawyer didn't flinch when I told him what happened. I sat across from him, still not entirely sure I believed any of this was my real life. I showed him the second phone. I let him read the messages. He scrolled in silence, occasionally nodding, his face unreadable. When he finished, he set the phone down and said calmly, "You have more than enough." I didn't know what he meant. For what? For full custody. For the house. For court, if it goes there. If this is the path you want, we can take it all the way. That was the moment I realized. I wasn't just hurt anymore. I was angry, focused. This wasn't about revenge. This was about protecting my son and reclaiming the version of myself I lost somewhere in all this. I spent the next few weeks collecting everything. Screenshots, photos, emails, bank statements. It turned out she'd used our joint account to buy hotel rooms once or twice. When she needed a break, she'd paid for dinners, gift cards. There were even Venmo payments labeled with emojis, ones I didn't want to understand. Every piece of paper became a weapon. Every timestamp was a nail in the coffin. Meanwhile, Julia didn't see it coming. She texted me often at first. "We can work through this. Don't do anything drastic. Think of Ethan." When I didn't reply, she tried other tactics, voice notes, guilt tripping, even accusing me of abandoning her in a moment of weakness. She thought I was still the same guy from 6 weeks ago, the guy who forgave too quickly, the guy who smoothed things over to keep the peace. But something had shifted in me. The night I had Ethan asleep on the couch at my brother's, I got a message that just said, "You can't seriously want to make this public. Please, let's talk." And that's when it hit me. She wasn't scared of losing me. She was scared of looking bad. She'd always had a carefully crafted image. PDA mom, clean house, fresh cookies for teacher conferences, smiling family photos on Instagram with perfectly coordinated outfits. She lived for the approval of others. This would wreck that, and I was fine with it, because she wrecked something too, something bigger, something sacred. We filed the initial paperwork quietly. My lawyer advised me not to tip her off until we served the papers officially. We kept it calm, strategic, cold. I felt like I was playing chess with someone who didn't even know a game had started. But the moment she was served, on a Wednesday afternoon, in her driveway, she exploded. 20 minutes later, I got the first angry voicemail, screaming, swearing, accusing me of trying to destroy her life. Then she sent a 3-paragraph message about how everyone makes mistakes and how I was weaponizing her humanity. Weaponizing, that was her word. It was surreal, watching her fall apart, not because she was sorry, but because she was losing control. She begged to see Ethan. I let her, under supervision, at my brother's house. She tried to be sweet in front of him, like nothing was wrong. He was confused. I held him close that night while he asked, "Why did Mommy cry when she hugged me?" And that's when I made the final decision. This wasn't temporary. I wasn't going back. I wasn't forgiving this. This was war now, and I wasn't going to lose. They say court is slow. They're not wrong. But when it finally moves, it moves like a freight train. Discovery Day was what my lawyer called it. The phase where each side had to show their cards, documents, evidence, witness lists. No more secrets. It was the first time since everything blew up that I saw Julia face to face in a formal setting. A conference room at the law office. She wore makeup, a soft pink blouse, played the part of the composed, misunderstood wife. But when her lawyer slid the folder across the table, she froze. She didn't expect what I had. Photos, texts, screenshots of her second life, financial statements showing she'd used our son's savings account, his savings, to buy concert tickets for one of her flings. Julia's face went white. Her lawyer kept it professional, but I saw the shift in his posture. He leaned back, lips pressed tight. He was realizing what kind of client he had. Then came the custody packet. I'd requested full custody of Ethan with only supervised visits for her. That was the part she couldn't hold together for. Supervised? She said, her voice shaking. You're actually doing this? I didn't respond. My lawyer did. Calmly, clearly, with the weight of facts behind him. We have substantial evidence that suggests the home environment has been unsafe and unstable, he said. Multiple extramarital relationships conducted inside the family residence, while the child was present or could have been. She started shaking her head, looking at me instead of him. Tell them it's not true, she whispered. Tell them I'm not a bad mom. But I didn't say anything, because I wasn't there to protect her anymore. She tried a different tactic after that, pulled out a letter she'd written, handwritten, in loopy script. A character statement, she called it. About how hard she'd worked to keep our family together. About how isolated she'd felt. About how the pressure of motherhood had made her vulnerable. She even quoted a Bible verse at the end. Something about grace and forgiveness. I stared at it, then slid it back across the table. No comment, I said. My lawyer glanced at me, then added, We'll let the court evaluate the material. The worst part of the day came right before we left. Her lawyer asked for a private moment between us. Against his advice, I agreed. We stepped into the hallway. She didn't cry. She didn't yell. She just looked at me with those tired eyes and said, You really want to raise him to think his mother is a monster? That hit me, but not the way she thought. Because it wasn't about what Ethan would think of her. It was about what he'd think of me if I let him grow up in a house built on lies, with a mother who saw him as a convenient block of time between affairs, with someone who used his face in photos to buy herself sympathy while turning his nap time into an opportunity for betrayal. I looked her in the eye and said, I want him to grow up knowing what self-respect looks like. That was the last time I saw any softness in her. The mask dropped. You're going to regret this, she said, low and cold. But I already had. I just learned to live past it. I didn't sleep the night before trial. Not from fear. Those days were long behind me, but from the weight of everything riding on this. My son, his safety, my future, the truth. The courtroom was smaller than I imagined. Less like TV, more like a meeting room with pews, cold fluorescent lights, wood paneling, and this quiet pressure in the air like everyone knew something was about to break. Julia came in wearing white, like this was a redemption arc or a wedding. She looked around nervously, smiling at people she didn't know, trying to appear calm, collected. But her eyes flicked too fast. Her hands tugged at her sleeves. And she wouldn't look at me. I didn't care. My focus was the judge. The first day was all facts, custody requests, financials. My lawyer laid everything out clearly, structured timelines of her affairs, screenshots of the second phone's contents, and most of all, that message with Ethan's photo. The judge didn't react, but I saw the slight pause when he scrolled to that one. Julia's lawyer tried to spin it, called her a mother under strain, talked about how women often carry invisible emotional loads, and how one mistake shouldn't erase years of love. But it wasn't one mistake. It was dozens. That's what came next, my testimony. I stood up, raised my hand, and told the truth. I told them about the day I came home. The door opened, the sounds from the bedroom, the look on her face when she saw me. I kept my voice steady. I didn't embellish. I didn't need to. The facts were strong enough on their own. I told the judge how I found the second phone, how she didn't even try to deny it, how our son's nap time was used to schedule hookups. I talked about how she used his college fund card at a hotel, and how she tried to play victim once I finally stood up for myself. When I finished, the courtroom was dead quiet. Then it was her turn. Her lawyer prepped her like she was walking into a PR interview. She took the stand with fake poise, smiling like she was in a PDA meeting. She called me a good man at first, said I'd been a loving father, claimed we'd drifted apart emotionally, and that she lost herself in the silence. The judge let her talk, but when cross-examination started, it fell apart quickly. My lawyer asked one question that changed the whole atmosphere. How many affairs have you had while married to the petitioner? Her mouth opened, then closed. She looked at her lawyer, then the judge. I don't remember, she said finally. It echoed. A buzzing silence. You could hear someone shift in their seat in the back row. I looked at the judge, and for the first time, his expression actually changed. Not outrage, just quiet disappointment. Then came the texts. We submitted full logs. She tried to claim they were old or taken out of context. But there's not much context needed when one message says, "He's so clueless it almost makes me feel bad." Almost. She turned pale when that one went up. Her own words. That was day one. By the end, her lawyer requested a recess. He knew what was coming. And Julia? For the first time, she didn't look like a martyr. She looked small, like the truth had finally caught up with her, and there was no more running. Day two of the trial started colder. Julia didn't wear white this time. She wore black, no makeup, hair pulled back. She looked tired, shaken, but I knew better than to think it was regret. It was strategy. Her lawyer opened the day with a new motion, an emotional appeal for joint custody, claimed I was using the courtroom to punish her, not to protect Ethan. They tried to paint me as emotionally unstable, said I'd taken drastic action by leaving the family home, and that I'd cut off communication abruptly and aggressively. Then came the twist. They brought up a supposed incident, one Julia had never mentioned before. She claimed that months prior, long before I caught her, she had felt unsafe during an argument, that I'd raised my voice too loudly, that Ethan had gotten scared. There were no police reports. No neighbors had complained, nothing documented, but her voice broke when she said it on the stand. He was different that night. I didn't know what he'd do, she whispered. It was subtle, well-rehearsed. Even I sat there for a second thinking, where is this coming from? My lawyer stood up immediately. Your Honor, we request proof of this alleged incident. The judge raised an eyebrow. Do you have any? He asked her attorney. They didn't. No photos. No calls. No witnesses. Just Julia's word. A word that had already crumbled under oath the day before. Then my lawyer did something brilliant. He pulled out Ethan's daycare behavior logs from that exact week, entries written by his teacher, including one where she praised how calm and emotionally stable Ethan had been that entire month. We also submitted texts Julia sent me the morning after this supposed incident. One said, "Thanks for helping with bedtime last night. He was really happy this morning." The contradiction was brutal. Her lie collapsed on the stand. You could see it happen in real time. Her shoulders dropped. Her gaze hit the floor. The judge leaned forward slightly and asked, "Ms. Carter, are you sure you're recalling this event accurately?" She said nothing, because anything she said next would dig the hole deeper. Her last card had failed. Worse, it had backfired. The judge now had reason to question her credibility on everything. We recessed early that day. As I walked out, I passed her in the hallway. She looked up. I expected venom, or another desperate plea, but all she said was, "You've made me look like a monster." And I finally answered, without hesitation, "No, you did that all by yourself." It took the judge 3 days to deliberate. 3 days where I barely ate, barely slept. I kept replaying everything, what I said, what she said, the look on the judge's face when she stumbled through that lie about Ethan being scared. I tried to stay calm, especially around Ethan, but inside, I was holding my breath nonstop. And then the call came. "We're reconvening tomorrow." Final ruling, my lawyers said. Courtroom. Same room. Same fluorescent lights. But this time, the air was electric. I sat straight, silent, focused. Julia came in late. She looked hollow. Her lawyer whispered to her, but she didn't respond. I could tell she already knew how this was going to end. The judge entered. Everyone stood. What happened next wasn't a dramatic speech like in movies. It wasn't loud or theatrical. It was surgical. The judge began by laying out the facts. Clear, repeated infidelity. A pattern of deception. Use of the marital home for extramarital activity while the child was in her care. Attempts to manipulate the court with false claims, unsubstantiated by any evidence. He paused and looked directly at her. "Ms. Carter, The court finds that your behavior has not only compromised the marital trust, but also, more significantly, created an unstable environment for your child. Your actions were not isolated, impulsive errors. They reflect a pattern of recklessness and dishonesty that cannot be ignored. Then he turned to me. Mr. Andrews, while the court recognizes the emotional difficulty of this case, your conduct has remained stable, child-focused, and cooperative throughout the proceedings. And then he said the words I didn't realize I'd been clenching my fist waiting to hear. Primary physical and legal custody will be granted to the petitioner. Supervised visitation will be allowed under scheduled conditions for the respondent. Julia gasped, like she hadn't seen it coming. Like even after everything, she believed she'd walk away with at least something to keep control. But not this time. She tried to stand, to say something, but her lawyer gently touched her arm and shook his head. It was over. I don't remember standing. I don't remember leaving the room. I just remember stepping outside into the sunlight and breathing in, deep and clear, for what felt like the first time in months. She followed me out minutes later, not to fight, not even to talk, just to look at me one last time. Her eyes were red, and for a second, I thought she might actually say something real, but all she said was, "Tell Ethan I love him." I looked at her, this woman I had once thought I'd grow old with, this stranger in my wife's skin, and I said the only thing that felt true. He'll know, because I won't lie to him. Then I walked to my car, alone, but finally free. The first morning after the verdict, Ethan crawled into bed with me before the sun came up. He didn't say anything, just curled up against my chest with his stuffed dinosaur tucked under his arm and whispered, "I had a dream we were back at the lake." I wrapped my arms around him and said, "We'll go again. Just you and me this time." That's when it really hit me. This was our new life, just us. And I was okay with that.